A more unusual illness I had at the age of 4 was scarlet fever. By then it was a less serious disease than it had been years previously, and I don't remember feeling particularly ill. But Carol was just a baby, and it could have been dangerous for her if she had caught it. So I went into hospital in Northampton for, I think, about 2 weeks. Although family could not visit in the ward due to the risk of infection, they did come to the hospital and bring treats. I had a really good time during that hospital stay. It was like a holiday playing on the ward. I couldn't bring out any toys or books I had there though, again due to the risk of infection. When I was discharged, Auntie and Uncle came in the car to take me home. I cried when I got home because I didn't want to go. Poor Mum, she was really upset, and I can understand why. I got my comeuppance when I was 5 though. I went back to hospital to have my tonsils out and was really looking forward to it. What a shock! Firstly, they put a sickly, sweet-smelling anaesthetic mask over my face. Then, when I woke up after the operation, how my throat hurt. It was just no fun at all. I was only in for 1 night that time, and I couldn't wait to get home. That operation must have been in one of my first school holidays. The big change of starting school was something I had found very hard to wait for. My friend Sandra went, and I wanted to go with her. Now, back then there was no preschool or kindergarten that was provided by the state. Formal state, or in US terms public education in England, began at 5 years old, but you didn't start until the term after your 5th birthday, unlike now when children start so early. Oh, but I so much wanted to go, and Dad persuaded the school to let me start on my birthday in the middle of the autumn term. We had no choice in which school we went to. Each one had its own catchment area, and so all the children just went to the one nearest to them. Our little 2-room school was behind the Buckingham Road in Old Bletchley, between Far Bletchley, where we lived, and Bletchley itself. Old Bletchley was in fact the original Bletchley village. The school was called Church Green Road Church of England School, rather a mouthful, but it was usually just known as Church Green School. We children walked to school on our own. We went down Newton Road, across the Buckingham Road at the crossroads by the Shoulder of Mutton pub, and a short way along another little road. Then we turned right into Church Green Road, which led slightly uphill to the school. Once every week on a Thursday morning we had a church service. We all walked in a crocodile, 2 by 2, to St Mary's Church quite nearby. Sometimes in the nice weather we also went on nature walks to see what plant and animal life we could find. Special finds were taken back to school to be placed on the nature table at one side of the classroom. In the spring we picked the young hawthorn leaves to eat on the way to school, calling them bread and cheese, though I don't know why that name. In summer we broke off cow parsley. Queen Anne's lace is a nicer name, I think. We broke off the stems to use as pea shooters, with the missiles being the seeds of the same plant. Late summer we picked and ate blackberries. Wild roses, dog roses, grew in every hedgerow, giving a display of brilliant red rose hips in the autumn. That time of year also brought bright orange Chinese lanterns, which we would pick and carry. On foggy autumn mornings we broke off thin, springy twigs and held them with the ends together. Then we used them to gather the glistening spiders' webs and called them our mirrors. On really cold, frosty winter mornings we would slide on the ice on the footpaths until it was like glass. When it snowed, it was as exciting for us as it is for children now, and we had fun throwing snowballs as we went to and from school. Children from the ages of 5 to 11 were taught in the 2 rooms of that school. Each room had an old black, freestanding coke-burning stove in it to provide heat for the winter. One room was for the infant class of 5 to 7 years old, the other for junior school age, 8 to 11. We sat, 2 to a desk, at old-fashioned, and old wooden desks with bench seats attached. Being old wood, the desk surfaces were quite uneven, making writing sometimes a bit wonky. They all had holes for inkwells, but we did not progress beyond pencils in the infant class. All necessary supplies for the pupils in state schools were provided. Parents were not asked either to make donations to the school for extra equipment, and we had no school outings or trips to pay for. We just had our outings to church and the nature walks. At morning break, each child had a free 1/3 of a pint bottle of milk with a paper straw. The bottle tops were cardboard, with a perforated centre to push out and make a hole for the straw. We used these tops, two placed together, to wind Mum's leftover wool round and through to make pom-poms. To finish off the pom-poms, you cut through all the wool between the two bottle tops. Then we tied another piece of wool tightly around the middle, pulled off the bottle tops and fluffed out the pom-poms. With the bottles sitting outside in crates, when the weather was really cold, the milk would expand and push the tops up above them. The teachers brought in the crates to sit by the stoves, where we could watch the tops slowly sink down again. I liked the milk with flakes of ice in it. I think, boys and girls alike, we must all have had cold knees in the winter. We young girls all wore short skirts or dresses, although we did have long socks in winter. The boys, until they started secondary education, wore short trousers that ended just above the knee, like our dresses, again with long socks. It's a good thing we all had nice warm winter coats. As I mentioned earlier, I, like Dad, went home for my dinner every day. Most people at that time did so, work and school generally being within easy travelling distance. My friend Sandra and I would often walk a different route home to the one we took to get to school. We took a footpath from the school out onto the Buckingham Road, near Chandler's grocery shop. We would cross the road at that point. This took us into Holmchase Spinney, a little wood where we would play. There was a pond that always seemed to have planks of wood across it, probably put there by the older children, and we would lose all sense of time as we played there. Dad arrived home from work just after 12:30 p.m. for his dinner, often to be met by Mum with the news that I hadn't got home yet. Again. So off he came on his bike to find me. Mum hated it, knowing I was in trouble. They tried all kinds of punishment until they found one that did work. One day, Dad left me to get home in my own time. This turned out to be about when I was due to set off back to school for the afternoon. I was sent to my room instead for the afternoon, and had to take a letter in next day explaining my absence. I didn't know that Dad had already been up to the school. I hated missing the afternoon, and I felt mortified to have to hand over the letter. So that was the last time that I went over to Holmchase Spinney and didn't get home in time for my dinner. I had one big adventure with Carol whilst we lived at Whiteley Crescent. I knew my way to Cambridge Street in Bletchley, as we still used to visit regularly, sometimes on the bus and sometimes walking. This one day I had Carol with me in her pushchair, no longer the big pram one, when I was out playing. For some reason I decided to take her for a walk to visit Auntie, so off I set. We moved back to Bletchley when I was 7.5 years old, and I should think this was the previous summer, before my 7th birthday. None of us know how long the walk took me, but fortunately Auntie was at home when I got there. She was horrified to see me on my own with Carol and brought us straight back. Mum was very surprised to see her, as she had not yet realised that Carol and I were away from the area. She just thought we were still out playing nearby. Whilst we lived at Whiteley Crescent, Mum would go to visit Auntie one weekday afternoon a week. They went round the shops in Bletchley together. It was a rush to catch the bus, as before I started school, we always had to have Listen with Mother, a story for children, on the wireless at 1:45 p.m. on for me. I think the bus must have been at our stop on Newton Road shortly after 2 p.m, the time the programme ended. When I was at school, and Carol old enough to listen to it, she was just the same. On Sunday mornings I went to Sunday school at a little Baptist chapel on Newton Road. I think this was because Mr. Richardson, the father of my friend Carol in Cambridge Street, was the local Baptist minister. One Saturday every summer, the Newton Longville Brickworks, like the others belonging to the London Brick Company, held a sports day. This was on the sports ground under the railway bridge where we used to play. I don't remember too much about the day, but I know it felt quite exciting. There were a lot of people there, all kinds of races, tugs of war, various stalls and refreshments to buy, and in my mind it was always a hot and sunny day. Also in the summer, Brenda came down to us from Bayton for a holiday. My cousin Brenda. Later on in my childhood I reciprocated these visits. Brenda and I have always got on very well together, despite our age difference of some 9 years. Even now, although we're not in contact very often, when we are, it is as if we spoke to one another only yesterday. All through my childhood we got together with Auntie, Uncle and Ken for everybody's birthdays and for Christmas. Auntie and Uncle also started taking me on holiday to Southsea with them and Ken, and I shall tell you more about that later. The only presents I gave that stick in my mind are the birthday presents to Uncle. I had no trouble at all in choosing these. He loved big Jaffa oranges, which were relatively expensive then. He peeled them and then dipped the segments in sugar to eat. With his sweet tooth, he also loved a confectionery called Clarnico creams. These were a kind of sugar fondant, which came in a small box of various fruit flavours. They were tooth-rottingly sweet. So every birthday, until I was older and had more than pocket money, I gave Uncle either a Jaffa orange or a box of Clarnico creams. And the next time I come back to this, I shall be looking at Christmas past.